Hey guys, it's Kelly. Welcome back to my channel. Now, you know, one of my favorite topics, one of my passions is talking about the moisture barrier because I've definitely struggled with it in the past and I know how important it is to keep that moisture barrier healthy. And one of the biggest concerns that I had when I even discovered that I had a moisture barrier, I'm like, how do I take care of this? What is this? What do I do? Like now that it is so weak and damaged, what do I do? And it is a whole rabbit hole out there of all kinds of information. So I really wanted to just create a video just talking about what do you do? How do you know when your moisture barrier is not feeling quite right? What do you do to get it back on track? And what are some things to think about to keep that moisture barrier healthy long term? And I knew I couldn't do this alone. You know, I love to talk about the moisture barrier, and I had to have a very special guest to sit down with me today for this conversation. So you guys, I am so excited to be introducing Alli Reid, the founder and CEO of Stratia Skin. Alli, hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for gracing us with your digital presence.
Oh.
I feel like, ever since quarantine and everything started, there have just been so many more opportunities to connect than we ever would have thought of beforehand. So in a way, it's kind of a blessing in disguise to be able to be a little bit more connected than we were before. So I'm a super big fan of your skincare products. I mean, I talk about them all the time, you know that. And that's actually how I discovered your brand, was when I was going through that moisture barrier healing journey. But for those of you who may, have just stumbled upon this video, you don't know me, you don't know Stratia, can you just quickly introduce yourself, who you are, and what your brand is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Alli Reid. I started Stratia in early 2016. So I have a chemistry background that I wasn't doing anything with, and then at the same time, in my maybe early 20s, sort of discovered skincare for the first time. I really hadn't paid any attention to it at all before then. And so combined this burgeoning love of skincare with, I just missed lab time. That was my favorite part of chemistry. So through the wonders of the internet, taught myself how to formulate skincare for myself. And tried just playing around with it. I shared some formulas on my skincare blog, and people seemed to really like it. So in 2016, I launched a couple of products, assuming it would just be a side hustle on the side of my full-time job, and it just took off from there. So the Stratia ethos is very science-based. I wanted to formulate products that I wasn't seeing on the market and products that I knew worked, where the ingredients were really well studied. I was using them at percentages that were effective and in effective combinations, while still having really elegant formulations that felt nice to use. So that's what I've tried to do. And then our flagship product, one of the two products I launched with, and I think is going to be a big part of today's discussion, is Liquid Gold, which I formulated based on some studies showing the best ways to strengthen and heal the moisture barrier as a specific ratio of ceramides, cholesterol, and fatty acids. So that's what I formulated Liquid Gold around.
I love that product. That's what got me hooked. That's what really actually helped me through my journey. And much like you, it was what is going to work? What is proven, or at least what's my best shot at, getting a step ahead with my skin and getting it back to being healthy. So let's just jump right in. And the very first question that I kind of want to tackle between the two of us is, how did you discover the moisture barrier? Because I feel like it's not just something that people are like, oh yes, and your moisture barrier. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like most of us discover that we have a moisture barrier because something happened to us that we had to find out what it was. So I'm curious how you discovered that and why it's so important to you.
Absolutely. I kind of blindly backed into a discovery of my moisture barrier. I had damaged it, but I didn't know that that's what was happening. And it was at a time where there wasn't really much discussion about the moisture barrier in general a few years ago. But I mean, in the same way that I sort of taught myself cosmetic formulation, I just was voraciously consuming information about the skin. And the American Academy of Dermatology has some free learning modules on their website that I was doing to like learn about the structure of the skin and how it works. And so I was learning about transepidermal water loss, which is sort of the main metric of damage to the moisture barrier because it's showing how much water can evaporate out through the skin. And so was sort of learning about that, about the barrier properties of the stratum corneum. And I was like, oh, maybe this is why my skin feels so bad, because I got into it the way I think a lot of Western skincare people do, which is how many exfoliants can I throw at my face at once?
Yep.
And the answer is a lot. I can throw a lot there. So, so that was kind of, I learned about it conceptually and then realized I could apply it to my own skin and saw really immediate benefits.
It's like, oh, hey, wait, this makes sense. This is kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I have skin too. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
For me, I've always identified, I know that it's not technically like a skin type, but I've always identified as dehydrated skin type because I just feel like there's a thirsty beast on my skin, and the more hydration, the better. It just always felt thirsty. And I always knew the term dehydration. I kind of stumbled, like you said, across like transepidermal water loss, but I never actually it never clicked until my skin was really feeling bad, where I was like, oh, a moisture, let's go a little deeper into this. What's a moisture barrier and why is this important? And like you said, like throwing so much chemical exfoliation on your skin, I think a lot of people it's a learning experience, right? Because like everybody's skin is different. Some people can take a lot, some people can take not a lot, and some people kind of fall somewhere in the middle, and there's no formula for that. You can't find that out from an influencer or from a brand or from a dermatologist. You just kind of had to experiment, and so I definitely experimented and got myself in hot water, and that's, like you said, you just are always consuming the content around it. You want to know why things are happening or how, why they're doing what they're doing. And that's definitely similar to my story, where it's just like, okay, something's got to give here. But yeah, it took me a long time to take, dehydration and the moisture barrier and put those two concepts together as being, directly linked, which I think a lot of us do stumble on that.
Absolutely. And I think another tricky thing is just the word dehydration, because when we think about it in the traditional sense of a person being dehydrated, you just add water and that is what's going to fix it. But dehydration comes in the skin because there's actually sort of like not that heavy sort of lipid layer that you can add water and it'll just leave right back out. And so it's a different technique to address dehydration in the skin than dehydration in the body.
That's a really good point, and that is a trap I totally fell into too. I was like, hydration. Light moisturizer. Do I need a moisturizer? Light moisturizer? So one of the biggest questions that I think I get this a lot. I'm sure that you get this too. It's like, how do you know? Like, how do you know your moisture barrier is healthy? How do you know it's not healthy? Like, how can you tell what's going on with your skin and if you need to like kind of up your moisture barrier game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are some telltale signs that are pretty unique to dehydrated skin. One of them is that if you try to figure out your skin type, you just get confused because it feels oily, but it's also very flaky and tight. So it feels like you have dry and oily skin simultaneously. That is a really clear sign that your moisture barrier is damaged. Another really clear sign is that even the most gentle, basic skincare ingredients will sting when you put it on. So like the gentlest moisturizer, or any hyaluronic acid serum, anything you put on your face is going to sting or cause redness. There are also some more subtle signs, which are that one is that if you start noticing wrinkles in places where you don't have a lot of motion in your face, like you get crow's feet because you move there a lot and so it kind of squishes the skin. But if you start noticing, wrinkles on your cheek or something, that can be a sign that it's gotten kind of lax because of a lack of hydration plumping it up.
Yeah, I mean, stinging was something when my barrier was like kaput's. I was like, I've used these products for years and like it kind of hurts my face. I'm like, what's going on? Did they change the formula? It's like, no, they didn't change the formula.
Yeah.
A big one for me, you know, like I mentioned before, I always feel just a little bit of dehydration. That's something I'm kind of always balancing on my skin. But like when that feeling, that dry and tight feeling just starts to get worse, or like I can't make it from like my morning routine into my night routine without feeling dry. That's like a big one for me. I'm like, something's not right here. I'm like losing too much like hydration through my skin. I want to wash my face and do a whole nother skincare like routine just to make it feel better. That's always like a big sign for me too. And oddly enough, and this is stopped since I started using tretinoin, which is like a whole nother beast. That's like a whole different video. But like more oil on my skin, even though I feel dry. More oil. I'm getting more greasy, but I am feeling more dry and tight underneath all that oil, which is just really gross. I mean, I think anytime your skin's kind of just changing, like just kind of doing something out of the ordinary, you should always kind of like be in tune with that and just kind of listen to what's going on. Think about maybe some changes that you've made. I'm curious to know if there's any specific triggers. I mean, I know we talked about chemical exfoliation just a little bit, and unfortunately there's no formula, guys. Like we can't say only use it every other day or only use AHA or only you gotta experiment a little bit. But I'm curious, are there any other triggers that kind of maybe push your barrier a little bit besides like the more common culprits, like a really aggressive exfoliation?
Yeah, I mean, I think exfoliation is a really classic one, both chemical, like AHAs and BHAs, as well as physical, like scrubs, because you're just literally stripping your moisture barrier off. But there are also issues if you're using a very high pH cleanser that can really disrupt your moisture barrier, as well as any harsh cleanser. Generally, if it's a harsh cleanser, it's going to be higher pH just due to the nature of the formulation and the surfactants themselves. I mean, any cleanser, the idea is that it binds with oil and then washes away in water. If it's too strong, it can bind with the oil in your moisture barrier and wash away. And then another thing could just be sort of sunburn, windburn, exposure to the elements, anything that's just kind of going to do damage to your skin could potentially disrupt that outer moisture barrier.
Say your moisture barrier is not feeling great. What are things that you do in your routine? Like, what are things that you change, or maybe like you slot into your routine? Are there certain like practice, and maybe not even just products, but just like certain practices or philosophies that you're like, okay, moisture barrier, swoop into the rescue? Like, what would be your like dream team like skincare sort of lineup, if you will, or practices that you do?
The overall philosophy when I'm trying to treat my moisture barrier is just be nice to my skin, which is why, when we were talking earlier about how to identify if you have dehydrated skin, even if you're not sure if you do, the downside of trying to treat it is that you're extra nice to your skin. So it's not a huge loss. So
yeah, I like that.
What I do is cut out exfoliation, cut out any potential irritants. So even things that aren't exfoliants like benzoyl peroxide, you want to kind of cut those out for the time being. And I know it is so hard if you have active acne to step away from the acne treating products, but a damaged moisture barrier makes your skin so much more vulnerable to developing blemishes that even though it feels so counterintuitive to not use active anti-acne products like strong BHAs, things like that, it can actually be so good for your skin to be able to heal itself that will prevent future acne from developing. So yeah, put down the irritants just for a little bit, and then go really gentle. Go really gentle. A really gentle hydrating serum, a moisturizer that's maybe even thicker than you need. And then you can pry my Aquaphor out of my cold dead hands. I use it for everything. I use it. I mix it with a moisturizer to make a sleeping mask. I use it as eye cream. If I'm gonna be out in the wind, I use it preemptively on places where I normally get windburned. It's good for everything skin related. And it feels like, again, it feels counterintuitive, like it's gonna cause a lot of acne, but it's actually not comedogenic and is very unlikely to clog pores. just because it sits on top of it. It doesn't get into the pores really.
It's almost more like a protective layer that just sits on the outside and just kind of like hugs your skincare rather than like
Exactly.
deeply penetrating the skin.
It kind of functions as a substitute moisture barrier while you're fixing yours. It prevents the moisture from leaving your skin while your skin is healing. So it's almost like a Band-Aid. Let your skin heal itself and give it a break.
For me, yeah, definitely. I take a big hard step away from any type of exfoliation. AHAs, BHAs, vitamin C's, tretinoin, retinol, all of it just it stays over there for a little bit. That was a hard thing for me. And I've shared, my moisture barrier story before, but that was the biggest key for me because I could not stop exfoliating my skin. I tried to cut down. It wasn't I didn't stop completely. I had to stop cold turkey. And after I did that, it took 3 or 4 weeks and my skin was back to normal. But if I hadn't stopped doing that, I'd probably still be struggling with issues. You couldn't tell me nothing. You know what I mean? I had to learn it for myself, but now I'm trying to tell you, we're trying to tell you, just it's okay to stop for a little bit, even if you're just feeling a little iffy. I that knowledge was power for me. Even if my skin's just feeling iffy, it's not that big of a deal to skip on night. My worry was my skin will get worse if I stop using these active ingredients. Except my skin got worse because I was pushing my skin too far by using them. So it takes some time to kind of get comfortable with that. Skin health at the end of the day is going to equal beautiful looking skin. But if your skin is not healthy underneath, you're just going to constantly be struggling with all the things that we don't like: dull skin, blackheads, congestion, acne, redness. A lot of that is intimately tied to the health of our moisture barrier.
Yeah, and I think doing all those things, being really gentle and giving your skin sort of a chance to heal itself, it'll get there eventually. I think you can move it along faster by using something like liquid gold. So you want to focus on ceramides, cholesterol, and fatty acids, which are the three components. Oh, I got ahead of you. But the three components of essentially the moisture barrier, the stratum corneum, is a sort of bricks and mortar structure where the bricks are these flat dead skin cells filled with keratin, which is the same protein as in your fingernails. And then they're held together by this mortar of a fatty mixture that's made of ceramides, cholesterol, and fatty acids mostly. And it's that mortar that keeps everything waterproof and flexible and healthy. And so something, a ceramide forward moisturizer can really help sort of reinforce that mortar and help it heal more quickly.
Are there any other kind of barrier superstars, or barrier supporters? Because I guess those were the superstars. But are there
superstars?
Is there a supporting cast? Yeah, exactly. Who else is starring in this movie?
It's a Love Actually sort of we've got a bunch of stars. So I think another maybe myth is the idea that especially if one of the symptoms of your dehydrated skin is that you're very oily, it feels so counterintuitive to use oils. But as I mentioned, that outer barrier is oil-based. So adding oils is going to really help to prevent water loss, and especially more occlusive oils. Not all oils are occlusive, actually, and occlusive means they sort of stop water from evaporating through them. So the more occlusive oils, especially things like petroleum jelly and those things that feel really heavy. You can also sort of Google occlusivity of plant oils and get a complex chart and decide for yourself which ones sound good. But I think going in with oils, and especially oils that are really high in beneficial fatty acids. I really love rosehip oil, which is fairly easy to get for cheap. That has a really wonderful fatty acid profile and can be really, really nourishing for damaged skin. And so it can feel, if you hear the word dehydrated and you see that your skin is oily, you're like, I'm not touching an oil, I'm water only. But I think we really want to keep that focus on oil. So try to overcome that mental hurdle.
I've heard that niacinamide, like 2% of niacinamide is like very good for ceramide like synthesis on the
Yeah.
skin. Is that like something that you lean on a lot when your skin is not feeling so great, or is that more kind of like a preventative, like my skin is healthy and let's keep it that way kind of ingredient?
I think it can be both. I think there's a lot of evidence to show that niacinamide between 2 and 5% has really strong barrier supportive and reparative properties. There is a lot less evidence one way or the other for the sort of higher percentages, 10%, 20% that we're seeing.
Yeah.
I would worry about irritation, but again, it's something that is personal. You can keep an eye on your skin. But I think niacinamide is a really great thing to add, no matter what state your barrier is in.
I have tried 10% serums, which are really effective and good for like specific things, but they can feel kind of like, I have very sensitive skin, but it can actually feel a little stimulating on my skin. And it's always surprising when you learn that it's a moisture barrier supportive ingredient, but then you kind of feel like it is a little it's a little strong. But at the lower levels, my skin just absolutely loves it. So I think that that's definitely something to keep in mind too. It's like bigger isn't always better, especially with specific ingredients. Start slow.
But I think that's a trap that a lot of us I fell into really strongly, is that more must be better. You know, if I can handle a 5% glycolic acid serum, then obviously a 10% will be better. If I am at 0.08% tretinoin and I want to up it to 0.2, you know, like that we want to keep doing more and more and more. And so low percentages are bad, high percentages are good. And that's really not true. It's whatever the threshold is to get the benefits that you're looking for. You don't need to go beyond that. There's no benefit to pushing past the point where you're really seeing positive benefits. And often as you increase a percentage past that point, you're not seeing additional benefits, you're just seeing additional irritation.
If you are seeing results, you know, don't FOMO, guys. Like, you're probably not missing out if you're still seeing benefits. If you're happy with the progress that your skin is making, you know, you're not necessarily going to make it faster by bumping up, you know. So that, like I said, that leads me into the next question, which was like, well, what if your skin feels fine now, but you want to take care of your moisture barrier? You want to kind of have your eye on the prize. Like, your skin is healthy, let's keep it that way. What are some, I guess maybe just like, I know we talked about a lot, but maybe just some best practices or philosophies that you can incorporate anytime, every routine, just to make sure that your skin is staying strong and healthy?
Yeah, I think the first tip, as it is with any skincare advice I give, is know your skin, know thy skin. That you may, know if you have certain triggers, that if wind tends to be negative for your moisture barrier, that if you can tolerate AHA is fine, but BHAs tend to really irritate your skin. So just kind of be aware of that, really notice it. It's surprisingly easy to fall in love with the idea of a product and not actually notice the effects it's having on your skin. I think another tip is to integrate a really gentle cleanser into your routine no matter what. You know, don't play around with high pH harsh cleansers. Just keep it gentle, ideally non-foaming, depending on what feels best for your skin. So that, and especially with high pH products, it's a cumulative effect. You won't necessarily see the negative effects immediately. So you want to avoid this sort of long-term degradation of your moisture barrier.
When I switched over to low pH cleansers, I noticed that my skin was less congested, it was less inflamed, it was just like my skin was just a little bit clearer and like less dull over time. So I'm a big fan of low pH all day, every day. What's another one that I really like is just keeping your eye on the oil and water. And just the same as like when your skin is damaged. Though I always say like there's like a certain percentage and everybody's got like a unique one. Some people need 50% water and 50% oil. Some people need 75% water and 25% oil. It just depends. And once you kind of figure out like what your skin likes, like how much of each one, if you feel like one day my skin is actually craving more oil than it normally does, that's actually a good sign. Like, hey, something's going, off here. And just that philosophy, I like that you said, like, be kind to your skin, is definitely something that I think more of us probably can embrace in our daily routines. I feel like there's such an emphasis on like active, high percentage, exfoliate, vitamin C's, retinol, tretinoin. And I feel like that was like a really big thing, even just a few years ago, like trending in the skincare community. And it is starting to like go away just a little bit, but I still think that there is like a heavy emphasis on, I mean, hey, those ingredients that really give you like a bang for your buck. They show up immediately. Those results it's hard to ignore those. But just kind of having like a healthy relationship with that and not like wanting to get so, because it's addictive. I don't know. I even still I'm like the queen of gentle skincare, and I'm still like, oh my gosh, if I just put tretinoin in my routine one more night a week, like, oh my goodness, it's gonna look so good. Like, no, slow down.
This is gonna date me horribly, and B, sound like a very strange thing to be referencing right now, but there's a Frasier quote that I think about all the time. The context is not important, but Frasier is like getting wrapped up in this crazy scheme, and he says, well, if less is more, think about how much more will be. And it's so easy to fall down that rabbit hole of like, well, sure, my skin is great when I'm gentle to it, but imagine how great it'll be if I'm awful to it. Yeah. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. And this may sound a little too woo-woo-y for some people, but I think that we have a tendency to get into the mindset of us versus our skin, that we are battling our skin in order for it to look nice, and it is working against us. Yeah. And I think it's important to just be on our skin's team. We're on the same side. Our skin also wants to be healthy, and so we want to support it however we can in that journey towards health, and rather than trying to, go on the offensive against our skin.
So I feel like a lot of people who are watching this video are either like super big fans of your products and are geeking out right now, or they are dealing with the moisture barrier issue right now. So for those of you guys who are out there watching, searching for answers, what would you tell viewers, like your top advice or tips for getting that moisture barrier back on track?
I'll just walk through my routine. And I want to say beforehand, I have extremely dry skin. So this may seem like overkill, and it may be. Then again, dehydration is actually, you treat it pretty similarly to very dry skin, because dry skin underproduces oil. That's why it's the opposite of oily skin. So you want to supplement with extra oil for dry skin, which you also want to do with dehydrated skin. So, and this is going to sound like I'm shilling my products, and I guess technically I am, but I wouldn't formulate them if I didn't love them. I wouldn't release them.
I would be concerned if you didn't actually use your own products, though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're fine. In the mornings, I only cleanse with water, because if you don't have enough oil in your skin, which you don't for dry or dehydrated skin, you want to leave as much of your natural oil in place as possible. That said, if a symptom of your dehydration is extreme oiliness and you don't want to go through your day shining like a disco ball, feel free to cleanse in the morning as well. But I use Velvet Cleansing Milk, which is a low pH cream cleanser, doesn't foam, to be super, super gentle on your skin. So I highly recommend a low pH cream cleanser. Then I go in with a hydrating serum to help sort of plump up the skin, get some hyaluronic acid in there, which is great. I use Rewind, obviously, but any sort of like gentle hyaluronic acid serum would be great, especially if you can add in some niacinamide there. Then I go in with Fortify, which Kelly mentioned it earlier, but I formulated it. The formulation process for Fortify was really unique in that I did it mostly in Excel, of these endless spreadsheet tables of the different fatty acid profiles of a million different plant oils, and trying to get the exact ratios of fatty acids down. And so it's formulated specifically to have the right fatty acid ratios for your skin. So then go in with a facial oil, something like Fortify, a blend, or just an individual oil if you know it works really well for your skin. You know, rose hip, squalane, olive oil can be great for your skin if it doesn't break you out. It doesn't have to be super expensive. Then I go in with liquid gold. I mean, honestly, I made it because there wasn't anything on the market yet specifically formulated for the moisture barrier, so I can't really recommend alternatives for it because I tried to make it something really unique. But something with ceramides, cholesterol, fatty acids to kind of just, you know, help to fortify and strengthen and reinforce that moisture barrier. Lock it all in with a strong occlusive. I love Aquaphor. A lot of people also love CeraVe Healing Ointment, just plain Vaseline, sort of whatever you have on hand. Avoid exfoliants, irritants. Try to, you know, stay out of the sun too much. Definitely wear sunscreen. That's a point always and forever in any circumstance. But I think just keep it really simple, really nourishing. You know, imagine that your skin is your best friend and you want to treat it really well. It's going through a rough time right now. So that's sort of my routine, and one I think that can be tweaked and emulated by just about anyone.
I think my biggest advice that I would give is just to be patient. You know, because everything that you said I 100% agree with, and it's actually a lot of what I talk about on my channel, but like when we're talking about like the psychological element of like being against your skin and just wanting it to fix itself now, you gotta embrace patience on this healing journey, and that was really hard for me. Like I'm speaking from the heart right now. Like it was really hard. Like it actually is kind of like an emotional thing, because if you are seeing your skin just kind of like, it feels like it's just going downhill really fast, and anything you do is just, it does not seem like it's working. It's really frustrating. It's so, it's a little bit disheartening. And when you're constantly worrying about your skin all day long too, because it's not feeling good, that's not great either. So just arm yourself with knowledge. Hopefully this video helped. I think there was a lot of beautiful golden nuggets in this one of just knowledge and wisdom, but remember to just pair that with a healthy dose of patience. And just a little bit of kindness for yourself and for the journey, and just understanding that everybody heals at different rates as well, and that your skin is smart. It you know, you're gonna help it along, you're gonna give it some of that support that it needs, but it's smart, it will heal itself.
Yeah, and skin is amazing. It's the largest organ in the body. It is so complex, it is so evolved, and it keeps you so safe in so many ways. And so maybe it's breaking out today, but it's still doing such a good job, and it loves you so much, and it's trying its best. So give it some patience.
Yeah, give it patience, trust its process. And you're gonna go a long way with those philosophies. Well, thank you so much. Like this was like so much fun for me. Like I could spend all day, every day talking about these things, and I often do. it was great to have another like-minded friend to have this conversation with. I really do hope that this was helpful to all of you guys. And where can we find out more about you, about Stratia, find your products?
Yeah, we're on social, Instagram and Facebook at Stratia Skin, Stratia. Also stratiaskin.com. You can email me personally if you have any questions at Alli, ALLI, at stratiaskin.com. And Google Stratia. I picked the name partly because it's not a real word, so when you Google it, we're the first results. So there's no other Stratias out there.
It's true. Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, sharing your wisdom. I had so much fun with this. And you guys, I really want this video to be such a great resource for those of us who want to learn more, who, you know, are in that situation where you need to heal your moisture barrier, strengthen it up, or you just want to know what you can do to keep it strong at all times. So my request for you guys right now is in the comments, can you let me know, like, what's your top barrier tips? You know, what do you do to keep your skin strong and healthy? Because I really want this video to be able to help as many people as possible. Don't forget to give the video a big thumbs up if it was helpful to you guys. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. I release 2 new skincare focused videos every single week. Turn on notifications. And again, big thank you to Alli for being here. And I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Hope you're happy, healthy, and safe. Bye.